gender doesn't going to be a huge deal. I definitely want to hold the superintendent conversation until later in case he can get here.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go ahead and call us to order at 18:10. And if it's okay with this group, I'd like to skip the flag salute since we'll do the flag salute when we open the board meeting. Is that okay?
Yes.
Fine with me, yes.
Does anybody have any changes or modifications they'd like to make to the agenda?
No,
All right. Hearing none, we'll approve the agenda and move into superintendent evaluation tool. It's in your board books, but Shirley also printed out a hard copy for us. Linda, I'll grab yours and give it to you on Tuesday if that works for you.
that's fine.
So this is the superintendent tool that is suggested by both COSA and OSBA. They work together in conjunction with it, and they've changed a few things which we talked about in our work session when Vince was here. But what this gives us is it's an evaluation overview, and then you can read through the whole entire process, but it gives us all of our timelines for an entire year. And then it also gives us well, the tasks to do, so what we would want in thinking about it. As I thought about it, we'd want a copy of Sean's contract to match up dates, because his contract is wonky. I think his review date is like in May, which usually it's March or June. So we just want to match up the tasks to those dates.
Okay.
And get started on it. So really, we need to decide on what parts of this we want to do. I don't believe we have to vote on anything for that. So that's why it's a work session agreement. And then go from there.
So are we going through this entire workbook then?
I don't think we need to go through the entire workbook unless you want to.
I think the
There's
be
a,
important
Think
to
so.
highlight
there's-
certain things.
yeah, there's a, on the page 4, there's a 5-part evaluation tool.
Mhm.
And so it kind of goes through each section of the evaluation where we can choose from.
Mhm.
Okay.
Things. So if we want to talk through that and make decisions on that, no offense, Sean, I think that you get to be our guinea pig on how we
No.
customize this and if we make changes in the
Yes.
future. So
I want you to
kind of
be,
thought that was a
I
good
want to
way
be your
for
guinea
us to do
pig.
that.
Absolutely. Yeah. That way when,
likes to be a guinea pig.
yeah, woohoo.
He's the one that threw himself out there. just
Yep,
an
yep.
FYI.
Yeah, just take a whack at me. So, the timeline that Rustine was talking about is on page 6, I do believe. So March through August is a pre-evaluation. So in collaboration with superintendent, adopt all standards, goals, and evaluation procedures. This includes adopting materials, parts 1 and 2, and adopting the schedule for parts 3 and 4 if used. August through March is check-in meetings. So at least quarterly. Check-ins just simply give the superintendent an opportunity to provide information related to goals and standards. For the board to ask questions about progress and provide additional guidance and support. This also includes a final check-in when the superintendent can present their self-evaluation. These meetings are generally conducted in executive session, and it correlates to part 3. I would say the check-ins are the area that boards skip the most and should not be skipped. Because one of the worst things that can happen is the board is thinking we're heading this direction, and the superintendent's thinking, well, I thought we're heading this direction. And then at the very end, you go, uh-oh, we weren't exactly on the same page. What I thought and what you thought were 2 different things. These check-ins allow us to just check in. I can review my goals, where we're at, what I'm doing, and then the board can say, oh, I thought that,
Mhm.
so we're on the same page.
The thought process I had too on that with those check-in meetings or any timeline goals, were that we could give them to Shirley and she could put them into like her master copy of how she does her agendas. And so it's on her calendar to make sure they're on the agenda.
Mhm.
I thought that might be otherwise I know I'm likely to forget.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
You have the youngest mind here. You forget we're all in trouble.
then we're in trouble. Hey, Linda, I see your name on the,
I just did, but it went away.
oh,
I was just looking at it and I'm going, waiting for the opportunity to ask you guys if you could hear me. and, went away.
So if you find it, you should be able to get on there and log in or you should be able to, we made you a co-host.
There you are. Okay, so there you are. So
So you should be able to
Unmute,
unmute
can I-
yourself.
Unmute.
We can hear
I
you.
checked unmute, so can you hear me now?
We
Yep,
can hear you and I hung up on you.
yep.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear
Hello?
us?
You have to turn your speakers on.
Hello?
Okay, can you hear us on your computer?
I cannot. Checked unmute, but that's it.
Keep the volume on it. computer.
Doesn't say anything to me.
Is your volume turned up on your computer?
Yep.
I don't know.
I
Can
don't
you hear
know.
us just fine?
I can hear you with the phone, yes.
Okay,
Okay, we'll just leave it like that then. Okay,
okay, so then.
Wait a
Jan-
minute. Now can you hear me?
yes,
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna hang up the phone then.
can you hear us now?
Yep, I can.
oh,
Alright.
hey, success.
Okay,
All right, then January through March, we gather information. That's when I do the self-evaluation. I present it to the board. Self-evaluation is an excellent tool for self-reflection and really captures the spirit of what an evaluation is about. I think, cognizant professionals, no matter what position they have, the self-evaluation is actually more meaningful to them. And so that's a really good tool. And then by March 15th, we're at a date specified in the superintendent's contract, and that's where we got to pull the contract. We look at the evaluation results and then the evaluation conclusion. Usually a part of the conclusion is generally the board crafts a short narrative statement about the evaluation shared at a regular board meeting. And we could also share this out with our PIO and put it on the website, and you just be open and honest in terms of how the superintendent do.
I didn't do a good job of communicating, sorry.
I looked like 3 times and it said 6:30, so I was like,
The email says 6:30, the agenda says 6.
It's not your fault, it's all of our fault.
That's all right.
It's okay, Ryan. I was late too.
sorry.
Yeah. We were just talking about superintendent evaluation stuff, so.
Okay.
Okay, keep going, sorry.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's other things we should really highlight here. The document expands on those basic timelines even more in the succeeding pages. There's statutes you probably want to be aware of.
Mhm.
Here's a sample of the policy CBG
I
on
got some, thank you though.
post-evaluation tasks. Says as soon as one evaluation cycle is complete, a new one begins. And then shows some more timelines and performance standards. I think it's important to realize that the standards that this evaluation is set around is the national set of standards, which are all excellent. And really it starts on page 14. So standard 1 is visionary district leadership. It gives some descriptors about what that looks like. And then it asks that the board rates the superintendent 1, 2, 3, or 4, or NA on this particular standard. Now, the challenge for boards is that this is a collaborative process.
Mhm.
And if one of you feels like, oh, Sean did a 1, and the other one says, no, Sean did a 4, you're going to have to all agree upon a number.
And no
You know.
partial numbers, so no like 3.5 or
No.
2.5, has to be one number.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And of course, with me, it'd be all 4s. I'm kidding.
Mhm.
Kidding. No, I I always tell even the staff that I evaluate that nobody's perfect. And there's always, that's what evaluation is about, is improvement. Standard 2 is ethics and professional norms. You know, am I making ethical and legal recommendations to the board or modeling ethical behavior? Standard 3 is inclusive district culture. That's, you know, how you include your district staff in decision making and team building and things of that nature. Standard 4 is culturally responsive instructional leadership and improvement. So I'm, you know, looking at curriculum, assessment, instructional leadership, coaching and professional development for staff, et cetera, et cetera. Standard 5 is communication, community relations. So how am I doing in terms of engaging and communicating effectively with families and community partners, and cultivating relationships with members of the business, civic, and local government. And then standard 6 is effective organizational management. Is the superintendent organized, or am I squirreling all over the place? Standard 7 is effective financial management. How are we doing on checks and balances for managing the budget and monitoring the dollars as they're being expended and approved? Standard 8 is policy, governance, and advocacy. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then the other component is goals. And as you're going to hear me talk about goals a little bit today in the superintendent's report, we're really looking at admin wise, we're looking at goals in 3 areas: curriculum, budget, and personnel. So that's kind of where I'm going to want to establish my goals, is because that's what the building administrators and the people I supervise are going to be creating goals in those 3 categories. Now, the district goals can be something completely different. And really, the challenge for me is to make sure that the superintendent does align their goals to district goals, but also there's some alignment with the building level goals too. And so that's kind of the challenge. And so at some point, I think the board should be talking about district goals, and maybe that's another work session topic. You know, of what are some like 3 categories you want to establish goals in. And you guys don't have to be super specific with the goals. I can formulate those goals and write them for you. I just need to know what direction you're wanting to see for district goals. You've seen the district priorities list, and that's district priorities. That's kind of the objectives. But what's the overall goals? And be thinking global. You know, don't think so specific. Think very global. Maybe you want to be more inclusive with the community and transparency. I've heard a lot as a theme. Or maybe you're wanting to make sure that you are displaying certain outcomes to the community, or you want to achieve certain things like maintaining the bond project within budget and collaboratively including the bond oversight committee. I don't know. I mean, you have to think about those things. I'm just throwing out ideas. Also, the district goals is going to be a big part of the continuous improvement plan that we have to create as a part of the big state project, which is entitled Aligning for Student Success. And the state is trying to take 6 different major reports and components and roll them all into one project. And embedded within that project is the continuous improvement plan. That's going to be something that the district is going to want to visit every single year. You know, it's kind of like a rolling working document. And district goals has a lot to do with that in terms of driving the SIP plan.
So just with those 2 topics, so for that's part 1. So the standards and the goals are just part 1 of the evaluation.
Yep.
Or step 1 of the evaluation with 2 parts.
Mhm.
Does anybody have any changes? You're not required to put every single one of the standards in there, but does anybody want to call out anything they don't want in there? I mean,
I don't think so. I think they're pretty overall personally.
I agree too, just
Yeah.
from the superintendent standpoint. If I'm not working on any one of those standards, then I'm not doing my job. And so all those standards are very, very good.
And then for appendix B with the goals, do you guys want a work session to identify our district goals?
Well, we have some already in place, yes.
We have admin goals. I
I
don't know
thought
that
we had set some of those. Surely hadn't we set those before?
You did before. I don't think that you did so this year.
No, not this year. No,
We
year
did.
before.
So
I don't
the
think,
year before then, yeah,
do you have those
have 'em?
records?
the year before somewhere.
Yeah, because I know we hashed out a lot of that a couple of years ago. And so I'd kind of like to see where we were
Yeah,
and see where we're heading. And then maybe, throw in ideas there to add or take away.
and do you want to continue doing like we're doing tonight, like a work session before the board meeting, so we're not scheduling this separate one? Is that working
I
well?
like that. It's working for me.
Okay,
I'll
perfect.
know now.
No, it's fine. Sorry.
No, sorry, I should have.
So,
It's just
Okay.
been a crazy week, everything coming together.
it's the move.
It's acceptable.
All right, so part 3, sorry. Evaluation components for artifacts of evidence in the self-evaluation. Kind of talked through that already.
Yeah, so that just defines the standards even more. And it helps the board come up with a rating of 1, 2, 3, or 4 in terms of how the superintendent is doing, simply by looking at the artifacts. What kind of things fall into this? Are there certain components that are missing? So it kind of helps you determine what that is. And then if you look at page
33.
33, part 4. This is a targeted feedback survey, which the board needs to decide if they want to conduct and or not. Some boards choose not to do surveys. Some boards choose to do a survey only once every couple years. Some boards chose to not do the surveys at all. The challenge with the surveys is getting people to actually fill them out, because you come up with a joint number of targeted group stakeholders. Like I'd probably want Tanya Everest, the ESD superintendent, to be one of my stakeholders, because I know she would give me an honest assessment on a survey, and she wouldn't hold back. She'd just be honest. But sometimes when you identify, well, maybe Nathan Roberts is one we want to fill out, but Nathan's going to go, wait a second, I'm a little concerned about that. I'm afraid to say something and get back to the super. Even though this is a solid process with OSBA, because OSBA takes this data and they disseminate it and they report it back to us. So Nathan's name is never used. I would never see Nathan's name. You guys wouldn't either. And so it's a pretty solid process, but you're going to encounter that fear.
Oh,
You know.
of course.
So what I learned in my work session at the conference was that they've changed this. So it used to be that all the information was sent without a name, right? So
Right.
they would send they would send all the information without a name. But that information might include something that said something along the lines of superintendent was out 3 weeks due to a medical leave. We're not allowed to know that. That's protected leave. So now OSB actually goes through it and they say, okay, that's protected leave. That's not something that can be in an evaluation. And so they take out the liability pieces for us also that we shouldn't even be considering.
Mhm.
Their suggestion was to have their superintendent identify 3 internal and 3 external stakeholders that they work with closely to get that feedback. I am a proponent for these, whether they come back, whether we get good engagement. So where we might say, okay, it's suggested to have 3 on both that respond. We might identify 6 and 6. We might say, give us 6 internal, 6 external, and hopefully you get 3 and 3.
Right.
I also think it's a good judge of being able to see where we need to work on things in the future too.
Mhm.
Getting feedback that,
Oh,
that
absolutely.
shares that. So I think there is a fear in any one. I think some people just don't want to share because they don't want to share and they don't
Yeah.
have their.
That
And that's
just
okay.
seems to be the challenge that boards run into quite often.
the nice part is OSBA does all of that for us. So they send it out, get us the information.
Mhm.
And if we don't have any feedback, then we don't have any feedback.
Right.
And it's an optional part of the evaluation.
Yep.
So it's not like we would mark him down for not having feedback.
Right, we can't control that.
Yeah.
None of us can. But we can invite it.
Well, I like the targeted feedback because I think it's important to hear people that work closely to them, so. I think
Yeah.
that's super important.
Yeah, I think it's important to agree also, I mean, because any good leader, and the research tells you this, if they're all about people pleasing and not doing their job,
Mhm.
you're always gonna make some people uncomfortable and upset if
Always.
you're making the difficult decisions. And so that's why it's so important that we have an agreement on who these people would be. Who would be in the targeted group of stakeholders.
Linda, do you have, there's lots of nodding going on here, but do you have any comments or any feedback on the targeted feedback survey?
I think that we should have a survey, and I'm not sure whether you were saying that there would be a cross-section of employees versus and private citizens when you were talking about picking trusted people or not. What exactly would be the cross-section there?
So Sean would be the one selecting the people that the survey would go out to. And the suggestion would be that he pick a subset of internal staffs. Maybe he wants to have all the admin staff. But then he also would pick external people. Maybe that's commissioners, maybe that's CD construction, maybe, you know, all of
Yeah.
that. And so he is the one that gets to say, I would like these people to receive this targeted feedback survey.
How many do you think would be a good number?
They suggested it would be nice to get 6 in total back. So you probably want to identify twice that usually.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's, to me, that's kind of an important part. Because we see it one way and the public and other people that work with everybody sees it a different way. So I think we should try to do that part.
Okay. And then appendix C is just a sample evaluation summary.
Yes. And I think there's a good template to follow there in terms of just summarizing the evaluation. I've seen usually the board chair work with the public information officer to develop that final product, and then out it goes.
So we would have a more granular conversation where we went through the ratings and everything, and either, well, it would be your choice whether we did an executive session or public session, and then you can send out this summary page
Mhm.
to the public.
Yeah.
Depending
Yep.
on.
I think that's a good idea, and I really think that opens the transparency up to
Yep.
everybody that's.
Absolutely.
All right, so the takeaways I have are as follows. Shirley will get me the contract so I can build the calendar for us.
Mhm.
Plug in dates.
Mhm.
Then will set a work session for the 25th at 6 p.m. to talk through district goals. If we can get district goals in that time frame. I understand that there's a few boxes to go through possibly. So we'll talk through that. And then start giving you the timeline so you can give your artifacts,
Yep.
and then we'll go through those standards and all of that. And then we'll work with OSBA. I'll work with Vincent on getting this targeted feedback survey and that timeline sent out.
Okay.
So our next meeting, the second meeting this month, is it all a work session or is it a public meeting as well?
It's both.
So we would start the work session at 6 and the regular meeting at 7.
Yes,
On the 25th, right?
yes.
And that would be helpful if we could set district goals at the next meeting. That way, then I could in turn put my goals together. And then we're in
I
line.
don't know if we're gonna be able to set the district goals next meeting.
Well, if we have our old template, we have a good place to start, right?
Maybe.
It might take a little bit of talking through, but
Yeah.
the good news is right now we have 2 meetings a month and we have a little
Yep.
bit of extra time
Yep.
to build that and get ahead of it. Any follow-up questions or concerns or additional desires for the superintendent evaluation?
Nope.
Great.
No, I'm
Superintendent,
good.
okay, good. Sorry.
That's okay.
Superintendent search discussion. So in full transparency, I did email Sarah Erb today and said, hey, what would you need to know from us at the end of today if we decided to move forward? And I got a response from Vincent that said that he would be the one working with us. So that's the information I have from there. Obviously, we do have to vote in open session this evening on the decision on how we want to move forward with the executive, or sorry, with the superintendent search. But we can talk through a lot of different pieces of it right now. And I think that Shirley gave us. Did you give us the superintendent search piece of it?
I did not.
Okay, that's okay. I can read off of what I have right here. What are the important things that I found? So there is a cost associated with the superintendent search if we hire somebody to do this with us. For OSBA, which all I have is OSBA's information, we can vote to have Sean look into other companies. Also, there's more than just OSBA that we could work with. There's other consulting firms out there. But OSBA based on our student enrollment. So we would be between $7,200 to $9,500. So $7,000 to $9,500, depending on our student enrollment. And they take a process of like, so for Oregon, they would look both direct and indirect for candidates. And then for our regional states, this is where they would look for direct marketing coverage right here. So they would do some direct coverage there. And just 2 states, Nebraska and Tennessee, they only do indirect marketing. And then where you see the light colors, and Linda, I can show this to you on Tuesday also. It's an additional fee to market in the other areas. What OSBA does with us also is, or what a consulting firm would do with us, whoever we go with. They want to have 1 point person to work with, so the board would have to decide and vote on that, on who they want that point person to be. We need to decide on if we want our search to just be internal in-house or internal and external, or are we only interested in looking at external candidates? We need to decide if we do look at internal, external, do we allow for a different process of application for internal candidates versus external candidates? And so those are the things that they would work with us on to decide. I think it would behoove us to include Sean in the conversation of what are the qualities and qualifications of a superintendent. And they actually help draft up what that looks like. So it's not always just a rubber stamp what we're looking for. And we know that our district is different than Philomath or Corvallis or things like that. So we could work with Sean on what he's seen in the district to see what we might want to be looking for in qualities and candidates, or qualities and qualifications.
Especially for small schools.
Mhm. So yeah, the decisions we need to make are, go ahead.
Do you know why it would be different between in-house to out-house for application? Did
So
they say what the difference?
what I get here, it says, we don't have to have the same process based on if we know the person that's coming in, we know their qualifications versus having somebody externally. So somebody externally, they will do like the vetting of the person and their credentials and things like that.
Oh,
And we may
they
not
do it
have them,
in-house.
and
They
we
do
might
it.
be able to do
Third
it
party does it.
in-house.
Gotcha.
So
So are you,
You know, in the past, we did OSBA both times.
Mhm.
And we had them narrow it down. The one time we did 15, the next time we did 30. And
Candidates
is,
that the board would
yes,
review.
it is that files, you're gonna get a box of
Mhm.
files. Then we get to go through all those.
Mhm.
And we get to pick who out of those we want to narrow it down to. It's a process.
Mhm.
It's a very long process. So, I mean, they're very good at narrowing it down for you. You can pick a number and narrow it down. And I would recommend that we do that.
And the lower end of the numbers than the
Well,
30?
We
That's what I
got,
was thinking.
6
Five,
when we
5 and 1 withdrew. Yeah.
interviewed him, that's how many we had, so.
And that was a lot of work. I'm just gonna say that. That was a
Well, that was quick too. I
And
mean, that
you
wasn't a
will-
whole lot of time, so
This
it might be
is a-
more.
Longer time frame.
Yeah.
They'll get, probably, I mean, today's different than it was 15 years ago, but you'll probably get way more people applying for it.
Yeah.
Way.
So the one thing that is really awesome, like Cobb said, it whichever firm we go with, whatever decision that gets made, then we say we only want the 3 top candidates. And if we look at those files and we go,
Mm,
mm-mm, give me the next 7.
Okay,
Yeah,
So you can say we want to just see the 3 that you vetted out, and then go, okay, can we see the next 7 also? So we have the top 10.
right.
Mhm.
I like that idea.
When you're doing 15 of those files, you'll be here all day Saturday.
I
Well,
don't
and-
like that idea.
They start to bleed together. In all fairness, like
Oh,
the
they do.
names, the references, the
Mhm.
credentials, the
Mhm.
experience, it's all just one.
Mhm.
So
Very much.
the one thing that is the suggestion of just what I've heard, and I've only heard from OSBA, it's the only person that I worked with, and that was through again, the conference this summer. They suggest starting to make these decisions in the fall, which is where we're at today. And then they start opening their search around November, December. And then they would have candidates for us February, March. You go through that process. So that was kind of the timeline of it.
and this is all gonna be voted on before the election, right? Or before the
It would
new people
actually be,
come in?
Oh, before.
Because there's
yes.
gonna be 3 spots that are voted
Vacant.
on for school board members.
so, Sean's contract ends June 30th.
Usually the hiring season for superintendents is December through March.
Mhm.
Anything past that becomes late. Late in the season.
And so isn't the voting, has to be in May, right?
Yeah,
Your
but they
name
don't
has to
come
be
in till
March.
June.
Right, but your name
So-
has to be in by like March
Yeah,
15th,
something like that.
and then it's voted on in May, and then we don't know.
I said in.
Well, we should all be in office until the end of
That's gotta
July
be
or
in-
June.
End of June.
Yeah,
Because I said in several meetings before I was even brought on.
Yeah, I believe people can start running the fall here. They can start putting their submissions in. I think for the
Mhm.
board. For board is what I'm
Makes
talking
sense.
about.
Oh, it opens.
okay.
But what are your guys, so the decisions that we need to make tonight, when we vote. So we don't want to have an agreement or a decision made here, but, I think the big one that I see is internal versus external, and what are the benefits of that? So I think I personally will just share, I think there's a benefit in looking internally and externally and having the same interview process across the board. We don't delineate between anything else, but that's my opinion to keep it fair and challenging and, if Sean wants to apply
Competitive.
for it, then Sean can apply for it. And that's his choice to do that. If he wants to throw his hat in the ring to be the full-time permanent superintendent,
Mhm.
even though he would be considered internal.
Mhm.
And then
And I agree with that. I think we should look internal and external. My personal belief.
So I'll have to make that decision this evening. And then I guess, do you know of other firms? Are they more costly?
Yes. You paid a lot more money for them. The effectiveness, if one firm was still going, I would say, we probably need to talk to them, but they've kind of disappeared off the radar, and I don't know of any others that would match what OSBA is able to do right now. It's tend to come and go. There was a real strong firm that was active for many years, but I don't think they're really operating much anymore.
I know ESD and COSA helped when we were recruiting an interim.
Mhm.
Is this something that they offer for permanent, or is that only in Oregon, or is this, what's your opinion?
Good question.
Just curious.
COSA is actually actively involved in trying to help match a superintendent to a school district. So OSBA and COSA work together on these things. And so, OSBA is more of the formal, here's the process, we're looking for superintendents, but COSA is calling behind the scenes. In fact, they were one of the very first ones that called me. They said, where are you at, Sean? What's going on? We may have a job for you, because they have tentacles out there also in terms of people's skill levels and the strengths of one over the other. Like I've said multiple times, I would not make a good Portland Public School District superintendent. I'll just tell you that right now. But I feel my strengths are with small school districts, small rural, just like we have here, and COSA knew that. So they work in tandem with OSBA, and that's another advantage of going with OSBA, because I don't know how much COSA works with any of the other entities around.
That was my next question.
Yeah, I don't know.
'Cause I thought they were helpful to us, COSA,
Oh, yeah.
and so I thought they were
Yes.
super helpful.
Absolutely. And they were helpful for me too,
Yeah.
because they want to bring both sides together. They want to bring people together.
So you guys, I lost my internet for about 2 minutes and I lost part of your conversation, and where I left was where Christine was talking about if Sean wanted to throw his hat in, that he could. So did we straighten that out? Did you explain that out so that if it's possible, you said you wanted to primarily go external, but you
said-
didn't.
Oh, Deb and I were sharing our opinions that I think we both were in agreement that we felt like internal, external was the best option for our district, but that's a vote we have to make tonight on that standard. So
Okay.
the cost I thought was gonna be more than it is, because I just budgeted at the high end, but then actually reading through it and seeing that it's
Very
it's
realistic.
significantly less. I think that it could
Yeah.
cost more based on additional things or additional aspect. I think that they would be upfront with us about that too.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I said this or not, but Vincent is the one that would be working with us, not Sarah. He would work with Sarah
Mhm.
and coordinate, but he would be our direct contact to guide.
Vincent would be excellent.
I think he gels with our board really well.
Yes, he really does. And he understands his community.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or that, or thoughts on that or discussion? I know, Robert, you've been through this, so
It's,
you're really looking forward
to
to
be
it, huh?
honest, we interned both times. We did. It's just being honest. It's not fun. You just gotta do it.
Okay,
Very important thing. Important decision.
Well, the last one was patron comments. We only have 11 minutes. I don't know if you guys want to table this one till later. Well, no, it's the discussion around patron comment process. And if we
Oh.
wanted to discuss that, we can move this out to a further evening if you don't feel like it's as high priority. We'll take a little bit of a breather before we start our normal session.
I mean,
Does anybody
You
have a
wanna take
strong
a break?
opinion?
no, I'm fine.
oh, I'm more willing
Okay.
to talk about it.
So patron comments has always been, Shirley did a great job of getting us our slips of paper up here, but we just don't have an identified process for the public right now on, how long are we gonna hold patron comments? How long does each person get? And, when do we receive those? Is it only a slip? Does everybody have to email by noon? And so I just wanted to hear if there's thoughts. We can make that decision here because this will affect the agenda. We don't have to vote on this, so we can come to an agreement on this if we want to this evening, if we want to think about it more.
I
So,
kind of like the email by noon.
Well, that'd be online though,
Yeah, well.
but
would it
in
be
person.
Even if they were gonna be here?
So we could ask Mr. Roberts or Nathan to build a Microsoft form or Google Doc form that is on the front page of our,
Mhm.
our internet. They could click on it. They could say, I am this person. I want to talk about X and submit, and then it could email to both Shirley and I, so that we both had those.
Well, didn't you, Christine, didn't you and I have a conversation about the fact that you thought it should be even across the board and that people that are walking in should also do request by noon?
Yes, so everybody would use the same process.
I don't think email is appropriate for everybody. I think if you want to do email, because some people don't use computers and don't do email and.
There
they-
honestly is a lot of people in this community that don't have internet.
Yeah,
I mean, and we wouldn't think about that, but I know with the boys down here, there's several.
mhm.
So would
So
you,
maybe that is unfair.
would you like to have a process there where they can still sign up in person at a meeting?
I think so.
Yes.
They
Okay.
should be able to have a slip that says,
I'm here, I want to be heard,
Yeah.
because I have a voice in the community and.
Yeah.
And so I think cutting people off at noon by whatever, I just think that's not allowing somebody to come in and voice their opinion, even if they're wanting to talk for 1 minute, I think they should have that right.
Okay, so continue with the,
We should.
um, continue with the in-person slip.
Yes,
So you could actually do both. You could say.
but
email
yeah, that's what I was
submission
gonna
by noon,
add.
And if you don't meet that deadline, feel free to show up and fill out a blue form.
That's what
Exactly.
a lot of schools or a lot of other boards do. When I was there, they talked about it. In person, that's a lot.
Mhm.
By a certain time. I think that's
Yeah.
fair.
I like
and
it.
then my other part of that is I had a request from a community member that we usually have our patron comment in the very beginning. And they would like it to be either very beginning and towards the end or towards the end, so they can discuss part of what's going on.
Yeah, so that was the other part of it, is if we want to make it about agenda items or if we want to make it broad about what they want to speak about.
I think they should have the right to speak about. Because we are their voice in the community for our school.
Mhm.
And as an elected officer, I hear a lot of opinions, of course, at the cafe, and I say, come to the board meeting. Because I think they should have the right to speak their opinion at the board meeting. You know, it's not that we have to have an agenda or an action item on, their
For them to
opinion,
speak
but I
about.
think they should have the right to speak.
So
Well,
how
I
does
think they
that
should
happen?
have the right to speak, but I think we should continue with what Racine has been doing. And if there is a complaint somewhere lodged in that comment, that it should be referred to Sean and answered later.
Agreed. Mhm.
So with the way our agenda is built now and the process we're using of not discussing ahead of our action item, we would have voted by the time that they had. So are you saying that you'd want to have your patron comments after like superintendent's reports and things like that, and in between that and then moving to action items,
Yeah,
Right before action.
right before action
Yes.
items?
that's my opinion.
So I'm gonna, so patron comments. Okay, Linda, do you have any feedback on that you feel, do you have any concerns with that option?
I just think, we got all mixed up when everybody was commenting all the time and putting their hands up and talking about everything that we were speaking about. And so I kind of either would like it to be one at the beginning and one toward the end, after action items or before action items, so that we don't get into people commenting about everything that we're trying to make a motion on again. Because that was not a fun thing.
I think we're in agreement that the public needs to needs to speak during patron comments, and that's the only time. So are you advocating to have 2 patron comment sections still, or are you comfortable with that being after all of our superintendent and business reports, but before we move into action?
I guess it doesn't really matter to me as long as we keep it. So it's their opinions and what they came to talk about instead of trying to sort out what we're working on.
Okay.
Does
Time
that make
frame?
sense?
It absolutely makes sense, yes. Total time frame for patron comments, not to exceed,
3 minutes.
20.
sorry, the entire,
Total,
the total time for all the
10, 15.
10,
Oh,
15, 20, 30.
15 minutes, I think.
I was around 20.
Well, let's do it this way. How long
17
should
and a
one, how long should one person be able to speak?
3 minutes.
So if each speaker gets to speak 3 minutes, if we do 15 minutes, that's only 5 public comments.
We usually have that many.
I don't think that we do usually have that many. I just would like to, I guess my opinion is to, I'd actually like to put 30 minutes there, because we don't have, we would not exceed 30, but if there's none, then we don't
got
have
nothing.
anything, we just move.
Yeah.
And that allows
But I-
people to speak.
I think that we should still hold them, if we only have 2 speakers, then it's 6 minutes, not 30,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's 3 minutes per person. Can we have a timer?
We can get a timer.
I don't know.
Okay, cool.
I got a question about comments. Can we fill out a form and comment for ourselves as a community member or other?
Usually, I've seen it's very common in board agendas that there's a time for the board to speak freely.
Mhm.
Can we have that today?
You
I got,
you would have to make a change, proposal, change the agenda, and everybody have to agree, but you could.
it's all
I-
good, by the way, so.
I think it's a good idea, add time for the board to speak freely.
If the board has, but I think we should be held to the same 3-minute standard.
Oh, yeah,
then, too.
and, yeah,
And we just list it as board comments. It's usually at the end of the meeting, but we can put it any place you want. It's up to you guys.
Well, in the past, a few times I have had personal comments that I have felt like I needed to make, and not as a part of the board, not to be considered as a board comment. And I would still like to be able to do that on occasion,
Mhm.
if that's possible. But I would do at that point would be say, I'd like to speak as a parent rather than as a,
Yeah,
or as a
perfect.
community member rather than as a board member.
The final piece that I've seen other boards do is they have put a hierarchy system in patron comments. So they've stated students go first, then parents, guardians, then family members, then community members, and then outside of the district. Is that something the board is interested in putting in place?
Not me personally, but
I didn't hear you, Deb.
I think anytime that we have students here, they should go first.
I agree with that. Any student, if they're willing to come talk to us, come up here and talk to us. But after that,
Would you feel like if we just stated that the board would like to hear from students before other entities, would that be acceptable?
I think that's
Absolutely.
perfect.
Okay.
What do you think, Linda?
I also think that if you could put something in there that said something about, community members and that sort of thing next. And if we run out of time for the external people, I wouldn't break my heart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is that I don't, if we have people that come in we have kids come in, then we have community members, parents, whatever, those all kind of fit in the middle, but I would like to see external be last. Is that bad?
It's not that. It's,
The board can make that determination. So what I'm hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is students first, then community members, then external.
Yep, that's what you're
Is
hearing.
that what I'm hearing?
okay, so
Yes.
I'm gonna throw a wrench in it. I know we're at time, so I apologize, but for our students that are outside of the district, that have family members outside of the district, once we prioritize a community member to a parent, I think there's a problem with that.
So,
Oh,
So, okay, so we've said student first, and then we said community members, and then we said outside of the district. Well, those students that live outside the district, so do their parents.
Mhm.
So once we've
Mhm.
prioritized a community member, then we've prioritized somebody who doesn't have a student in the school possibly. So that's where that's where like that family
Mhm.
member
Mhm.
kind of fits between the student and the community at a more hierarchy level. Or we just say students first and then first come, first serve.
That's-
What about students, then district parents? That will cover internal and external community.
Or
Yeah.
district and community. Well, yeah, because, well,
I don't know. I mean, it's up to you guys.
I just think across the board,
That's
just
where I was
students
thinking
and
like students, families, community, external. But that
Good.
makes it really rigid too. Also,
could.
I think.
It's up to you.
well, and then you're taking time to figure it out. Maybe that's a little more than what we need personally. but
and we can always amend this, so
So
Yeah.
can we start
Yeah.
with students first and leave it at that?
let's do that.
Okay,
sounds okay to me.
all right. We are 2 minutes over. I apologize. Can you give us 3 minutes for a break and then we will go into open session?
Make it clear.
Yeah.
Yes, Priscilla.
I don't let the animals jump on the computer while I'm.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order at 9:04 with the flag salute. 7:04.
Oh, wow.
It's too early for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The first item on our agenda is the approval of agenda, and I think there are some changes to make. If you could note that this evening we do not have our minutes from the last meeting, so we won't be, we'll be removing that from our consent agenda component on item 7. Surely we'll get those to us at our next meeting on the 25th. I think we also need to add a patron comment section. And we will put that, my suggestion would be to put that as an item number, it would be item number 7. It would be under the financial reports before we move into consent agenda and action items. Are there any other changes to the agenda that you guys can see that we need to make?
So what was it? 7 was what?
So 7 is now patron comments.
And then are you doing 8 as a board comments or?
And
What?
then, yes, we can move, sorry, yeah, we can add 8 as a board comment. Yep, thank you.
Madam Chair, we need to add an executive session at the very end.
Okay.
Under,
Don't read it off quite yet.
okay. Did you put it in there?
No, it's there, it's there. It's right now listed as item 10 for an ORS 192.6602H.
Oh, okay, she did add it. Thank you.
And just so everybody's aware, thank you, Shirley, for changing this around. We will not adjourn. We will come out of our executive session into public session in case there's a vote needed. So we will not adjourn until after executive session.
So our 7, instead of being approval of the minutes, we're gonna do patron comment, board comment, and then approval of the bills for July and August.
That, yeah, our consent agenda. Yep.
Okay.
All right. And action will be 9, yes. Are there any other adjustments to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, Linda's motion,
A second.
Ryan seconded. Robert,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Christine's yes. Motion passes unanimously. Next up is our district recognition portion.
Yes, Madam Chair, if you wouldn't mind joining me up front here. And Roxy, can you come join us too? After I drop.
At the chair.
You want to say a few words about this
Yeah,
new part
yes,
of the
I
agenda?
will. This new part of the agenda is really to honor anybody in the district, whether that's students, staff, coaches, anybody that has done outstanding work. So I will just speak up and say, from a parent point of view and from a board point of view, the registration this year has been seamless. It has been outstanding. The work you put into that is amazing. So just thank you so much from all of us for putting all that time into this.
And I also want to say a few things about Roxy. Tim, are you ready? Okay, since I got here in March, Roxy's been an absolute pleasure to get to know. And her attention to detail is beyond what I would have expected. But it's something that we are certainly relying upon. We're certainly adding to her job description in terms of duties and expectations because of that. And she's already pulled us out of a number of very sticky situations because of her attention to detail. So Roxy, this certificate of appreciation is for you. Just say thank you for all the hard work and congratulations. Let's get a little photo of it. Wow, worked so long.
I think you got one more. Over there, Sean.
Oh, whoops, whoops.
Home,
Okay,
and then meeting homepage. Nope, homepage.
Okay,
And
all
then
right. Thank
this
you.
one right here,
Good job, Roxy.
and then quick view. And then you can go down. You should have your notes.
All right. Next up on our agenda is our superintendent's report. Mr. Gallagher.
Oh, yes,
What?
yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Lots of stuff going on in the district. We'll be talking more specifically about the bond update here in a little bit, as well as some other things, but I'm just going to hit a number of topics. In terms of communications, I think it's important for people to note that we have hired Sarah Cash as a public information officer. It's a part-time position, and she is going to be the main contact on behalf of the district. She's already helping us put together some newsletters and some press releases. We're going to be meeting with local press and establishing relationships with them. I want the public to know the great things that are going on here in LC. And I get tired of hearing what people's impressions are based upon other press reports, because that truly does not depict what this great school and this community is about. And it's a very special place. And we want to make sure we communicate that very accurately. So also a big part of our communication is website. If you were here last meeting, I think there were some comments in regards to the website and how it needs to be updated. Those, yeah, we're on it. And Sarah Cash is a big part of that. We'll be going through and trying with Nathan, our technology director, and trying to clean up the website. LBL runs it for us and they're very responsive. We just have to have, we needed somebody to take charge of it. And Sarah certainly is going to be helping, guiding and directing that. Yeah. Also, what we're adding to the website is a superintendent's page. There should be a bunch of information being loaded up to that. And normally what you see as a part of our board meetings is operational reports by all of our administrators and supervisors. Those are now going to be posted on the superintendent page for anybody and everybody to view. So it will not be a part of the board meetings, but it will be a part of my page, and we'll keep that updated. Every time we have a board meeting, we'll just update with a new report. Yes, ma'am.
For the first maybe month or two, can we have maybe a little blurb on the homepage that says to view these, go to super's
Sure.
page?
Sure, we
So then
certainly
that
can.
way it'll help direct people in the right direction.
We certainly can.
Because it's a new thing and not all of us are
Sure.
technically up to date, so it just takes
We
us
could-
some time.
We could do a flashing neon sign too. you
Perfect.
know, then we
Click
know.
here, click here,
click
click here.
There you go. Social media. We've had a little bit of problems with our Facebook page in terms of authority and ownership. Facebook doesn't like it when you try and create another page that is entitled the same thing as something that already exists. So we've had some hiccups there, but we now have full control of our Facebook page. And Nathan and Sarah and others will be working on redesigning that, so get that up and going. So that's kind of a communications update. Also, in terms of board meetings, I'm just reminding people of board books and public access. It should be turned on for public access 24 hours in advance. Simply go to the district website, go to the board section, you'll see board meetings and minutes, click on that, and you click on the meeting and all that information will be there. That way people can see not only the agenda, but they can see the contents of the agenda also, and that is available for public knowledge. HR reset, you've heard me talk about that a lot. I want you to get in your minds that HR reset equals rebalance. We're rebalancing the entire district. So it's not just about, we've identified certain positions that have very, very high salaries and bringing them back to match what the position is. We've also identified salaries that are way, 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 way low and need to be brought up immediately. We've also identified positions that, yeah, maybe they're operating here and their salaries here, but we need those people to step up to the plate to match that salary because that's district needs. We're also looking at absorbing positions through natural attrition. When somebody resigns their position, do we actually need that or not? You're going to hear a financial report tonight from Lorraine Sullivan that says we're still bleeding and we need to be looking at things. But we also need to be treating our employees fairly and appropriately. And so there's a lot of adjustments that are going on with that project. Once we do finish the HR reset and we do a cost analysis on that, then we'll have a much better picture about how close are we to meeting our budget goals. And our budget goal this year is to stop the bleed and hopefully build back some of our cash carryover that we've had in the past. And the raise is going to be a big part of that. And she's going to show you lots of data tonight. That'll probably spin your head in different ways, but it's all good information. And it's very important that we look at those things. I am targeting August 25th, our next board meeting, as the meeting date to bring the proposal of the HR reset to the board for consideration and hopefully approval. No names attached, but it's awful difficult not to put names attached because we're such a small school district. So as we're all looking at this, we have to look at this in terms of what are comparison districts paying for like positions? How can we maintain our competitiveness? What is a fair salary for this particular position? Does it need to be adjusted? Does it not? Do we need to adjust? We're going through all of that right now. The admin team and I have been meeting quite regularly on these discussions. We're also in the middle of student enrollment. Roxy is a big part of that enrollment and registration process. We're still trying to figure out, okay, what the students are coming and what aren't. And that also helps us determine what do we need in terms of staffing and what we don't need. Particularly like instructional aides for both special ed and general ed. You know, that's a normal part of a district function. So there's a lot of resetting and a lot of recalibration, a lot of rebalancing that's happening right now with our HR reset. I am meeting with people individually between now and August 25th because I want them to know what I'll be proposing to the board. I don't want it to be a surprise. So the August 25th date may be extended if I can't get to everybody in time. I don't want anybody to be surprised. I heard the board meeting last night that you're gonna what? I don't want that to happen. I want people to know up front and have a chance to absorb it. Also, if there's salaries that are coming down, I'm going to be proposing to the board a 6-month grace period where we don't make immediate adjustments on that until January. That gives people a chance to kind of say, okay, do I still want to maintain my employment with this job or do I want to look elsewhere? You know, I don't believe in cutting people off the knees. But those salaries that are way low, I think we need to do an immediate adjustment. And you'll see what I'm talking about when you start to see the data that comes out. We've been doing a lot of comparison analysis. Let's see, district goals. We were talking about that in work session tonight. We're going to be focusing on that as a board this next meeting. There's a work session before the next board meeting on August 25th. The admin team and I have been meeting and we've been setting goals that really focus around curriculum, budget, and personnel. And a lot of the budget goals revolve around checks and balances. We're redoing our requisition process and Lorraine is helping to train our supervisors and our staff and what that looks like. No longer should we be able to just take the credit card and go buy as we want. There's checks and balances. An employee puts in a requisition, the immediate supervisor then looks at it, approves it. Then it goes to either the business manager or my office for final approval. Then it goes to our accounts payable for purchase. You know, that's all the way that we keep track of what is being spent and what isn't. So if there does have to be a section that's, you know, like maybe Tim France comes to me, Sean, I only thought I need 3,000 here, I'm gonna need 5,000. Let's talk about it, Tim. Let's figure that out. There's checks and balances and in the process. So that is also a big part of what our goals are revolving around. Also, the continuous improvement plan is a direct alignment with the district goals and our building goals. And we're going to have to be creating that this year as a part of a process called Aligning for Student Success. You'll be hearing more about that. Also, this is in the board packet. So if you were to hop onto board books, you will see this. We have an official notice from the state of Oregon that that ODE and in combination with the Secretary of State through public comments and complaints that they have received from in Salem, that they're going to be conducting both a financial as well as a performance audit on the school district of things that happened before I came in March. And as we've all talked openly, that there's a lot of things we have to correct. Like for instance, the board of directors is going through a policy revision project this year because we've got policies that need to be updated to reflect current state and federal laws. There's a lot of that stuff that we're doing. But there's been enough complaints that ODE has received through Colt Gill's office, and Colt is the director of the Department of Education, that they're going to become bringing a team down and doing a financial as well as performance audit on the district. We are welcoming that. We are going to be opening our books and saying, yeah, please help us. Because there's areas that I don't have authority to look at that is outlined in that notice. So if you're interested to see the details, I would encourage you to read it on your own. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions to the best of my ability. And you'll also see my response letter in there in terms of how I'm responding to the audit. And since I've been here, have I seen other areas that I'm concerned about? Yep. And I will certainly be letting them know that you might want to look over here too. Wouldn't hurt. And what that does is helps protect the people that are existing, that are here and doing such a good job, as well as clear up things that may have happened in the past and then try to answer the question. My biggest passion is to answer the question of how can we prevent some of these things from ever happening again in any other district in the state of Oregon. In this day and age of checks and balances, there's things that happen that shouldn't have happened. And so I want to make sure that we're being collaborative, we're being open and honest with the state. We're opening the books. We're saying, here, have at it. Please help us. And let's work in partnership. And it may even end up in some legislative changes. I don't know. We'll just have to see where it goes. So that's going to be a big lift for us. I wouldn't let anybody be concerned about that. But it will be a part of what we're dealing with in the next couple of months. Let's see. What else do I have here on my report? Oh, Teachers in Service Week is next week, Tuesday. We have a district kickoff breakfast event where we invited certain dignitaries, including the board of directors. That starts at 7:30 a.m. We're serving breakfast and we'll be dining in the gymnasium with tables and chairs. And we'll have a podium on the stage, and my superintendent's hour will start at 8. And it'll go for 9 till 9 o'clock. Then we'll dismiss and let the public go. And then we'll continue with district in-service proceedings the rest of that day and also the rest of that week. We have a lot of stuff planned for staff that involves professional development and times that they have in their classrooms to get ready for kids arriving the week after. And so it's a combination of lots of different activities and making sure that everybody has what they need to get the school year started. So big week next week. Enrollment and registration. I've been asked about that a lot. I don't like to release numbers so soon because, things will change almost daily. But it's looking really, really good. We have a number of new students that have signed up for brick and mortar. I know that there's a number of students signing up for Learn at Home. We're looking forward to having some healthy numbers this next year. And so I'll be giving you more data on that as things progress, but it's just too early to say anything right now. Another question I'm going to ask a lot about is COVID. What's going on with COVID this year? Well, there was a temporary hiatus from the state law revolving around the COVID requirements, but that temporary hiatus has been lifted. So the law is still the law. And the good news is I've been asked about masks a lot. Masks are optional. They're not required. So if students or staff want to wear a mask, fine, wear a mask, no problem. But we're not going to be requiring anybody at this point. We've updated our COVID plan. It is now online. If you go to the district website and click on COVID, it'll take you to that section. You'll see the 22-23 plan. And so if you want to see all the details, please go to that and you can see what we've created. We were required to do that before students and staff came back to the district. And so we just submitted it and uploaded it today. The immunizations and or exemptions for either medical or religious for all staff are now back in order. We have to enforce that. And so again, if they have a medical or a religious exemption, we're going to accept that carte blanche, or if you have your immunization card, we'll accept that also. And, but we will be enforcing that with staff, and that is per state law. Also, if students or staff are displaying signs and symptoms of being sick with COVID, we're required to send them home. We also have COVID test kits available for free that we could easily use. Is it a 15-minute test? Is that right? 5 minutes?
Yeah, no.
15. So, you know, we would be able to test them right there, and, you know, of course, when students with parent permission and that sort of thing. But yeah, we're still having to make sure we are watchful and mindful of that. We also encourage people that are sick, even if they don't have COVID and they have the flu or a cold, to not come to school. We don't want the germs, and we want people to stay healthy.
Just say that CDC comes out and has come out and said, test for COVID on the 3rd day, because it's not showing up the first 2 days.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then there were some new guidelines released today. I was actually watching the news before I left home
Okay.
from the CDC. Some of the changes that they're recommending. to be made.
Okay.
So they came out today.
Good to know. You know, would you
What
like
was
to
that
not-
comment, the very first part of your comment, Deb?
On the COVID tests, they're saying don't test the first 2 days. They're saying to wait until the 3rd day, because this latest strain is not coming out positive until the 3rd day. So they're recommending that you quarantine and test on the 3rd day.
They're also
you're sick.
recommending that if you take a home test and you come out negative on the 3rd day, that you test again in 48 hours.
Correct. Day
We are
6 and 8.
so glad that you're taking care of that, Mr. Gallagher.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I don't want to be the immunization Nazi, but I, you know, we have to follow the law. Law is a law, and, you know, and I know the CDC comes out with new guidelines and those sorts of things, but we really follow what ODE says. And that's the kind of the definitive authority on that. We just have to do it. We want to make sure that we're keeping our schools open. We want students in school. I think we've all seen what's happened when students are not in school. And it's not the most ideal situation or learning environment. So we'll do everything we can to keep our doors open and people safe. And that is my report.
Outstanding. Next up is our bond update, which we do have some members of the bond committee here. We'd love it if you would come join us up in the front so that the public can hear you. If you guys have any feedback. We did change things around a little bit on this, and we've asked the bond committee to have representation here, just so that we can also hear from them if there's any feedback they have for us from their meetings, since we don't meet on the same cycles and things like that. So is Mr. Marshall here this evening, or CB Construction?
So Andy and Scott, if you could activate so you can join us.
I'm activated.
Okay,
I believe I am too. I just went green on the microphone.
okay, there's Scott,
And
and there's Andy. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
So Scott, I would say you have a bond report that is in the board packet. And if you wouldn't mind talking us through this, and then Andy, you can join in at any time, and then we can also invite our bond oversight committee members to chime in too in the discussion. Is that okay, Christine?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, guys. To go over where we're at, as we discussed last meeting, the conditional use is approved. The VOC building permit's been issued with no corrections. And
Wait, hold on. You said the permits have been issued?
the building permit is ready to be issued once it's paid for, yes.
The building permit is ready to be issued.
Yes.
And I told everybody when, as soon as that happened, I'd do a happy dance.
Okay, we'll go for it.
I'm doing a happy dance. That's huge, folks. That's huge. So I know there's a lot of people that really have been helping out with this process. And I want to say thank you to the county, even though it's been fairly frustrating for me, but that's a huge milestone in this project. And I want to make sure that we point that out. So Scott, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's a welcome interruption. I'm relieved as well. So yes, the VOC building permits issued that came back with there's no plan review comments regarding corrections or concerns. So we're good to roll on that. The VOC building construction, they're starting to move dirt out there. I'll let CB kind of fill you guys in on that because it has to do with the construction related activity portion. The HVAC upgrade, our mechanical engineer was on site yesterday. Peeked at a couple things, wrapping up his documents, and they'll be done next week, and we can get that out for bidding and budgeting once he's done with that. Now the HVAC project will not have a structural building component, only a mechanical building component, mechanical permit component. So that will probably go a lot faster. The hallway power panel project, we are working on a revised value engineered design to reduce some costs and to basically help the projects get in line with what the budgeting is. Andy's given me some information on some existing conditions in the field that I'm working with, and we are getting that kind of ferreted out so that we can so that CB can put a new number to it. The power upgrade, we're working on value engineering that design as well, looking for any potential cost savings that we can get. The process with the utility company is still in place, it's still going. We're good as far as the timing goes on that. During the next month, we will be having the hallway power panel redesign and value engineering done, and with some numbers, so we can know if we can get that value engineered down and get the costs more in line with what we want them to be. We'll be done reviewing the power upgrade, the service upgrade will be done, and we'll be able to know where we're at with that. We'll have the HVAC upgrade bidding and or costed out. And then at that time, we'll know exactly where all of these components fit in and have an overall project construction cost tabulation. So the highlights, challenges, and solutions has been dealing with the rising construction costs. And so the design team and the school district and CB Construction, we've all been working together to try to implement redesign and value engineering strategies to try to get everything to align within the budget and get the biggest bang for the buck. We've been having meetings every was it Tuesday. I've been talking to Andy daily on trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to do? Our engineers are relooking at stuff, so we're really being pretty diligent to try to figure out, okay, where do we want to, how do we revise things to fit in with how much money we have. The expenditures has not changed, with the exception of what the building permit cost is. So I think it was $5,500 or something like that. But I didn't update it because I didn't know where the district was as far as procuring that permit yet. So all in all, it's pretty good news. We're finally moving some dirt, and we have approvals, and we're rolling along.
And yeah, to build on that, field wise, so to speak, if I'm sure everybody's driven by and seen the hole in the ground, and it got a little bit deeper yesterday. We took the first foot of organic matter down and had it inspected by geotechnical engineer, and they determined we needed to go another foot. There were too many organics in that next layer. So what you see out there right now is the second foot being removed. And we spent the day out there today laying out the control lines for all of the interior foundations that will begin to be excavated tomorrow morning. They're going to bring in a smaller excavator, digger, so a little skinnier bucket, and try to keep the foundation excavations tight and clean so that we can do a neat pour and not use up too much concrete. The corner closest to the gym, southwest corner, will be a little wider and a little deeper than the rest because we have the ADA ramp in there. And so at the end of the day, once the deeper hole is excavated, Hughes will be putting up a temporary orange construction fence around that hole to keep people away. It'll only be maybe 2 feet deeper than it is now, but if you look at elevation from the top of the grass down, it's about a 3-foot fall, and we just don't want anybody, if they did happen to wander in there, fall into that hole. So I have temporary chain link construction fence ordered. More than likely won't be in until the middle of next week. And we also have a temporary toilet coming in that's going to be up on the far side of the building or the site closer to the library, but right alongside the access road so that they can get in and out and service the thing. And we thought it'd be better to keep it as far away from the school as possible in case we get any foul smells coming out of it. So, as Scott mentioned earlier, we have some work to be done still out around the back of the building and the hallway. We're working on dimensions around that existing underground tank and what's going to fit and what isn't. So that portion is exposed. And as soon as we figure out which way we're going to go, then we can get that buttoned up and put a slab back over the top and put that area back into usable space.
I do want to add very quickly of what these gentlemen shared is we were potentially looking at having to take out our big sequoia tree and a big Doug fir right next to it. But because of these gentlemen and innovative thinking, they were able to divert and reroute the sewer line. And so at this point, we do not have to touch those trees. Now, on the other side of things, those trees that line the driveway coming in, we're gonna have to take out the 2 most southern trees because that's exactly where the driveway has to go for the vocational center. And there's just no way of getting around that. So I've already contacted Eric Clendenin, the K-12 principal, and he's been talking with David Crow, who runs our forestry department. And we're gonna have students help us remove those 2 trees. And so that's gonna be a real positive part, I think, for the project. Shows student involvement. They're gonna be learning all the safety requirements, and Andy's going to be out there helping to supervise. And then we're going to have to grind down. We'll have a contractor do this part, but we'll have to grind down those stumps, and so it's below the surface there, so we can put pavement or cement over that for the driveway and also utilities access in a little bit. So,
and the if I could add to that, the grinding of the stumps was. We think that's going to be the better option because as we discovered yesterday, the water line that's serving the school runs right down parallel to the driveway through those roots. So we discovered the live line yesterday out in the middle of the building pad. Had a nice little water feature going for a little while, but we don't want to repeat that by pulling the roots out of the ground. So we figured that leave the pipe be and grind them down just a little bit below surface level of the grass. And then we can put some topsoil over it and, throw some seeds in there and it'll reseed itself and grow right over the top.
Thank you. Anything from the bond committee you want to add or update us on, or that you have considerations that we need to take under advisement
Or questions about?
or questions?
Okay.
You're part of this agenda.
I'm curious if we have any more updated figures on our work session on August 1st. They were asked to provide a more accurate budget by the 3rd, which we met on the 3rd. We had a different looking budget, but it still wasn't updated figures. Do we have any new numbers to work with, more realistic numbers?
We don't. The person who does our budgeting was in the meeting with me that night and has been away from the office all week. I believe it's a Naval Reserve exercise that he's been tied up in. So he did not get that completed before he left.
Okay,
So
and then any update and success with the list of contractors provided for more bids and potential?
Unfortunately, the first one that I called was mechanical, and they have declined to participate. It was from their major, I'm gonna say the big side of the company. They have a side that specializes in smaller projects, more our size, and they were going to reach out and try to get that side of the team to engage. We have been contacting I actually have 2 lists that were provided, and we've
Take
been reaching.
everybody out of here. Kind of.
Okay, I'm out. See you.
Turn that sound down.
But we are reaching out to those folks that were on that list, and as I'm talking to other people around
Take the
town,
dogs and put them in the cage. So they can't.
and on the
bark. They need
project,
to
we're
be a part of
getting-
this meeting.
we're getting leads to other subcontractors as well. Concrete Sub today turned me on to another electrician. So whether we reach out to him or not after Derek's commitment last week, I don't know. But he did drop the name and say it's somebody that he's used before, and he thinks he was in Newport. So it might be somebody who would be an option. But until we get the buyout complete, we will keep turning stones. We will keep finding names. We will keep contacting people to look for the best possible option for the district.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Any questions, comments from the board?
Yes, I would like to talk about my cup that's sitting right here. Thank you, Andy.
Thank
You
you.
came to the meeting with me. So this cup.
Little did you know she packs it around everywhere she goes, actually.
Absolutely. So Andy came up to the cafe on Monday, got a cup of coffee and a breakfast burrito, came down here, and after they moved the first little bit of dirt, he scooped it up in the cup, brought it to me at the cafe. And he said, "This is for you because I did have such a horrible time with the bond. So thank you, Andy. That made my day. And it's here in our meeting."
Good. Maybe we can, maybe we do a time capsule out there when we get done somewhere, and we can put that back into the ground.
That's a great idea. I'm going to put its date on there.
But we won't put a breakfast burrito in there. They're too good to bury.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't do that.
Linda, any questions or comments from your side? Okay. That completes that. Thank you, Scott and Andy, and thank you, Jamie, for being part of the meeting to ask those questions.
Thank you.
No problem.
Next up is Lorraine with our financial and personnel report. I will just say it is beautiful this month. I think I almost understand everything. There's so many more questions I have, but thank you so much.
Lots of
Yeah.
grass.
Okay. So I was going in a little bit of a different order than what was probably in the agenda, but first off is a summary, just to let you know of our ending fund balance is about estimated at 1.4, and of course it's July, but what makes up that is the one unappropriated. So we're having ending about for our working ending fund balance is about 96,000.
Say that one more time.
A working budget of 96,000. I will repeat that also. It's on,
I think that's on our
I
last
saw that
page.
and I just went, wait, what?
yeah.
So, yeah, yeah.
Because unappropriated, when you have an ending fund balance of a 1.4
Mhm.
and we can't touch 1.3 of it at all, then we have 96 to work with,
No.
meaning above what we can't touch. So not very much. But and then it just on this front cover sheet, it would tell you how much is in our local investment pool, and just the fact that we had a 1.25, which is raised over last month a little bit. And July is our first double payment of state school funding, so it's pretty big. Then I want to go over the brick and mortar versus learn at home spreadsheet first. And I put some notes on here to explain it a little bit more, but we have 2 columns. It's the brick and mortar and then the learn at home off to the side. On the top section, it's your revenues coming in, and it's based on our budget. So it's not based on actuals yet. So it's a goal to have this actually every month
to have actuals beside what we had budgeted, so we can look at it in reality. And it's based off of the ADM, but I did reduce the Learn at Home from the 9th, 10th and 11th, 12th. So it's more of an accurate number of what was estimated of 575 ADMW. And because on the state school fund, it went at 961 as a total student enrollment. And we just needed a little more accurate.
In other words, you broke up the 961 into Learn at Home and brick and mortar. So you separated the two.
Well, actually, the ADMW weighted was about 1,000 something.
Okay, 1,000 something.
Yeah,
But you broke it up into
But-
two separate.
yeah, on the state school fund, it actually says 961 ADMR, which is
Mhm.
your enrollment. And that was based off of including 9, 10, and 11. When it went to the state, it was including 9, 10, 11.
Right.
So I took away 105 students just to, of Learn at Home, because
Right.
they're going away. Well, at least that's what's anticipated.
Thank you.
Things can change. So I used the state school fund amount from the general fund of 9,078 per student. So it gives you how much those enrollments times the revenue. And then on the brick and mortar side, they have additional revenue that's always going to come in, is your property tax.
Okay.
That's not included in the
Okay.
9,078.
Mhm.
And then also 70% of the transportation grant. And your transportation grant of the 70% is only Alsea transportation, because it's supposed to be a wash on the Kings Valley and Willamette. So it's just the Alsea School District one. And then I put the beginning budget on the brick and mortar side. The expenditures, you can see that brick and mortar houses K through 12 students, Learn at Home is K through 8. We have, I just kind of will go over the highlights of our functions. We have elementary on both, middle school on both, high school program is only housed, of course, on the brick and mortar. Then you have charter schools, and this is budget of the 900,000. You can see that on the right-hand side. And then you have some more functions. I thought that the Board of Education Services budget and Office of Superintendent and Physical Services, that those should really have been budgeted out, split 50-50, because you can't run one program without it.
That's those three asterisks.
So there's 3 asterisks. It came out to be about 518. So I took it away on the brick and mortar and gave it to the Learn at Home. So the end result, based on budget, not actual yet, is about 710 gain on Learn at Home and 184 on the green on brick and mortar. This is based on the budget, so just to make sure. And
Can I ask a question
yes,
really quick?
go ahead.
Sorry, you mentioned that our bus fund is reimbursed at 70% and that our other contracts should be a wash. Are you seeing that they are a wash, or are you seeing that they're negatively or positively impacting our budget?
I haven't looked
Okay.
at that, but I
Okay.
did remove Kings Valley and Willamette from this expenditures
Okay.
budget, because they were supposed to have a contract that was supposed to be paying for them, and we're actually supposed to be getting reimbursed for everything. We're supposed to be, so.
Thank you.
Do you have any of you had more questions about the brick and mortar versus Learn at Home? And hopefully later on more to come.
So
Every
who
month.
who checks and balances the, Sean, this is for you, the WLA and the Kings Valley bus expenditures to what we actually get and
Mhm.
make sure
Mhm.
it's a wash.
Yeah, we analyzed it last year, and that's why we changed the contract on Kings Valley to more match the WLA, because what we were looking at WLA, it was a wash, it was a good match. So we feel that with the changes we made with Kings Valley, it should mimic the same. But I'm still wanting Lorraine to be watching that month by month to
Oh,
really
okay.
tell
So-
us,
Yeah.
is it working
Yeah.
like we expected?
So throughout this year, we'll be
Yes.
monitoring those.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And I'm sorry, I should probably know this, but that contract is renewed every year. Every 2 years or 3 years?
Two, right?
The Kings Valley, I think we agreed to, was it 1 year or 2 years?
I thought it was just one, but I'll have to
Was
go
it just
check.
one? I'll go check.
The one we just
Was
approved last month.
WLA?
Yeah.
It was two, right?
WLA was 3,
Oh,
but
3.
we're already on the second year of that.
Okay.
So we didn't make any tweaks to that, 'cause we're right in the middle of
Yeah.
that contract.
We're just wording on it.
So just again, this is based on budget and we still need to trim and save, so.
So it looks like to me, looking at our Alsea brick and mortar and our Learn at Home,
Mhm.
down at the bottom line, it shows that we're really over budget. 184,000 on our brick and mortar. 'Cause it's not-
No, that's a positive.
That's a positive. So
So
the
we're-
Learn at Home makes 710 and the brick and mortar makes
Well,
184.
that's what I was thinking, but it's not under, so it wouldn't be, it'd be under budget, so we're making money.
Mhm.
So that's,
Oh.
because it doesn't have the parentheses, so it'd be over. To
Sorry
me, to
about that.
look
I
at it,
messed up.
okay,
Yeah, I-
because I'm looking at it.
Okay,
I'm like,
I just, what she
sorry.
said, I didn't
oh,
know.
see, I'm looking at, it, I'm looking for the
Parentheses.
parentheses,
I
and I'm
will
like,
change
wait,
that.
it's over budget.
No,
So-
there, it's good.
Okay.
It's good.
So I,
Green.
huh?
It's green.
Yes.
Well,
What
yeah,
is-
It
well,
would have negative by it if it was negative.
It's good on a way overrated kid count.
It's good and that's why we're
Because
gonna make sure.
we're gonna drop a bunch next year. This is the, what do you call it?
it's the high of the
Yes,
2 years.
The high of the 2 years, and we're going to lose a couple hundred kids off of this number next year. That's what's forcing us
To do
to
the,
do the budget stuff.
So I guess maybe that's a good question. The ADMW, the top row, the enrollment, are those the high of 2 years or are those today's numbers?
No, it was going off of the state school fund for the 22-23, and it was actually taking the estimate for 22-23's extended enrollment. On that budget, on that state school fund report, it was saying that ADMR, which is your enrollment, was 961.
Okay,
But I went off of the enrollment counts of last year. I kind of looked at those two of last year of what was brick and mortar, Learn at Home, Alsea Online, Greenways, and I took the Learn at Home and then minus the high school to kind of come up with a more of
So
an
you
accurate.
subtracted 105.
Yeah,
I think is
105
what you said.
students, just
So
to
you
kind of
made
come
an
up with.
adjustment
did-
for a decrease.
so what I'm hearing is you're helping us already plan ahead by adjusting it. ahead of
Yeah,
time.
I
Yeah,
wanted to
we're
make
not
sure we're
counting
not
on that.
looking at,
Because
Kids.
we're gonna
Exceptional
drop
amounts.
from 900 down to possibly 750. Of course, that's not weighted, so it's gonna be a little more than that, but that's where,
It all depends on how our enrollment goes.
yeah,
right,
That's
so
too
you're
soon
gonna
to
be
tell.
adjusting these numbers as you go each
yeah,
month?
so no, probably not until we have the, there's, till the estimates come out again, and I think I'll, it's probably good practice to, I might go to state school fund and open it to make sure it's more accurate to our actual enrollment and get that adjusted.
Because
ahead of
those were the
time.
numbers that we were mostly concerned about, being paid on the higher of 2 this year and then coming and having to make those adjustments in May.
Yeah,
And it's really gonna
It's-
hurt our bottom
we don't
line.
want to look at it in May and say, oops.
Yeah.
we spent a lot of money."
Well, and that's why when I was looking at this, I'm like, whoa, this shows we're way over budget. So, okay, I'm glad that
So,
we fixed that.
I think you'll hopefully you'll get a report kind of actuals as we go along and then changes. So with that though, I was gonna show you, with that, I was gonna show you this part first, and this is just a revenues versus expenditures and how we, the whole pie, the budget and where it is. But on the revenue side of this form, you can see that the state school fund, I've already reduced it about $981,000 on state school fund to be estimate, so it's more of a versus 10,500,000, I estimate it down to 9,500,000 because of those 105 students. So with taking that into account, we have to also save on our expenditures by at least 15% or only use up to 85% of our expenditures that we've appropriated.
Mhm.
So we need to be conservative on our spending and good on our revenues. So.
Sorry
Um,
for,
go ahead.
sorry for interrupting, but by the time I figured out how to speak, I'm pretty sure the contracts for Kings Valley and WLA are 3 years. And also, I do all the reports for all of those people, so I include them in my report for ODE every year. And so I'm not quite sure why they were eliminated as
Oh.
our students.
Oh, no, that's not what I was mentioning.
Oh, okay.
I meant-
I might have misunderstood.
Yeah, I actually eliminated those sub areas from the expenditure line because the revenue should offset the expenditures on just those sub areas.
Okay, okay. I just wasn't clear on it, and I do believe that both the contracts are 3 years, not 1.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So just really quick over these last graphs, they're come out from Frontline. And the first one is the revenue, and it goes revenue and then the revenue graphs. And the first one here is just a comparison. If you wanted to follow along this one, it's a 3-year comparison of individual sources of revenue. So you have your local source, property tax, interest, and then down here's a state school fund. And it's just for the month of July so far for information. So you can see that we actually received 1.7 in state school fund source. And it breaks it down for the last 3 years. And state school fund, of course, was in 2021 was 677, and it goes up from there because of our ADM is going up. The second page to that is actually just it lumps it. It actually is just saying all your sources, state school fund, and then beginning fund balance, where you can actually see what makes up that revenue source is this one. So it kind of helps out to explain it a bit. And then same thing on the expenditures, is you have a breakdown for the month of July on this one. It breaks it out in more of a visual: salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies, and then transfers. And transfers, you don't see much because it usually happens in January, but it's all your budgeted transfers you approved by budget, those transfers. And then, of course, an overview on lumping all the things together. But I actually prefer these when I was looking at it again to give you details.
Put a lot of work into that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are Frontline and Forecast 5 products. So
Very, very handy to have.
did you guys have other questions?
One question I have for the board is, Lorraine and I have been trying to address the information that the board is wanting on budget. So yes, this is a Forecast 5 product, a lot of these graphs and charts, but also the analysis that Lorraine spent a long time with in terms of learn at home versus brick and mortar. We want to make sure that we're providing the correct information for the board. So don't be afraid to say something if, gee, this isn't enough, or we want more focused on this area, or we need narrative on that area. You know, we want to make sure that we're being very transparent in terms of where our budget is, and you have the information you need. So don't have to decide now or comment now. I'm just saying that we're open to whatever your needs are.
I really like hearing where we need to either, reduce our spending or stay within expenditures. And so what I think I look to you for is that additional information each month that you're getting close to, or next month you're going to need to be really, conservative and just keeping that watchful eye. Of course, it's always nice to hear when we're doing amazing. We're being really good about it. And then I think after the reset and the rebalancing of the HR, and we get our staffing numbers and our student enrollment more solidified, and we know what our staffing looks like, that's when I'd really like to see, are we hiring, but we're not increasing our student population? Are we losing staff? Why are we losing staff? And being able to kind of see that. And I don't know if that's a financial piece, and I don't know if you want to give that to somebody else or work with Sean on what that looks
I
like.
think
But
we've already started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're right in the middle of that, right there,
No,
right in the middle
yeah.
of that analysis.
For the FTE.
So
for location.
that's
Mhm.
my bit. So I just really appreciate your opinion and your guidance on the financials. Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you for the separation from our online to our brick and mortar.
Oh,
To
yeah.
me, that's really important.
Thank you.
Linda, Ryan, Robert, anything? All right, thank you so much, Lorraine.
Thanks for Larry. Nice job.
All right, so next up is our patron comments. I do want to let the community know that the board has decided to make a couple adjustments to our patron comments. So we will hold patron comments for 30 minutes, giving each individual a 3-minute maximum. If you're in person, please, fill out a slip. If you are attending online, submitting an email submission to Shirley is outstanding by noon the day of the meeting. And if you can't make it that deadline, please do come in person and fill out a slip for us to consider. Sorry, not to consider, to allow you to speak. You don't get consideration. The one consideration we will ask though is that if students sign up for public comment, they will be respected and heard from first prior to hearing from anybody else. With that, the public comment I have right in front of me right now is for Miss Jamie Olson.
I have a question.
Can you come up? Thank you. I'm sorry. It's the only way for everybody to hear.
Okay. Mr. Gallagher, in your presentation earlier, you mentioned reviewing curriculum. I would like to know what the board's policy is for selecting and reviewing curriculum, and if there's any opportunities for parent involvement in those decisions.
Would you like me to answer that
Um,
or just answer it separately?
Or
think-
you can feel free to
I-
report back at a further time, but that's my question.
I think
It's up to you.
answering separately
Okay.
and following up.
Okay.
There's
can do
some
that.
additional comments on some or questions that we have maybe on operational stuff. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, on with that, maybe community members and parents want to know the answer to that. So can it be put to the website of what is going to be the process?
It's actually in board policy already.
Can you read the policy for us?
Sure, I'm looking it up right now. If you want to keep going, I'll look this up and I can.
Shirley, do we have any additional public comments for patron? Well,
No,
that's
public.
for-
Well, it's going to be public. No, I'm not doing it as a board.
Are you doing this public comment?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, so then. I'm sure I'm looking.
I'm actually doing it on behalf of the fire department. I want to recognize the student work program for this summer that was new this year. David Frick, Mr. Frick did this program. It was a grant, I'm guessing. And there's a lot of kids that are doing this program, and they have to help a nonprofit, a government agency do work. They get paid through this grant, and they offered to help the fire department and go clean up. They pressure washed, they filled all the potholes from the school all the way to the other end, and they did a wonderful job. And so I wanted to say how hard they worked today. And thanks to Mr. Frick for taking on this project. And Sarah Littlefield today was their supervisor. I think he's on vacation. And then Roxy also helped coordinate the whole project.
I think that's fabulous.
So I don't know how long it's gonna last. Is it gonna go on through next year? Grant, okay.
Thank you. Policy?
I
Update
have
curriculum?
one. Can I do
Yes.
it?
Would you, do you want to
It's
speak as a
about,
board
it's
member?
about polls. No.
Okay.
It's about polls, either for, and what I understand is Pioneers already said, okay, for the forestry class. If and when we need poles for the field, if we can put wood poles up again, Stella Jones will try to donate those poles. And if we do end up needing climbing poles for the forestry class, they also have reject poles that they will donate for that.
Outstanding.
Didn't know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Did you find your policy?
Yep.
Okay.
There's a policy labeled IIA-AR entitled Instructional Materials Program Adoption Procedure. This policy was last updated in 2016. It will be one of the policies we look at updating for this year during the revision procedure. This policy mainly talks about staff input, teacher input, the process going through the administration to the superintendent, but then the board is the one that adopts any curriculum. And that would be the time and place for public input to take a look at that. Usually what I like to do is I like to have a work session ahead of time for the board to kind of look at the materials. I have representation of the teacher and staff committees come and present on that material. Here's why we're wanting this. We looked at all these different types of materials that were state approved, blah, 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 blah. Right now, we're right in the middle of adopting language arts and mathematics at the secondary level. But language arts K through 12, that should have been done last year, but it started when I first got here. And so we'll be working on that this year. And I can't remember what's next after that. I'd have to look at the list from the state.
Purchased math curriculum.
Do what?
We just purchased math curriculum for middle school and high school. So.
Who wrote that report? Okay, no, we did not.
Okay. Okay.
We did not just purchase because we haven't brought anything to you guys for. I think he was mistaken on that. So no, we have not purchased math curriculum despite what Mr. Clinton is saying. We are still working on that. And in fact, I met with our person in charge of it today, Lori Greenfield, and our next process is to prepare it for the board to take a look at before we make those purchases.
So if family members or community members or parents
Mhm.
want to be involved in that process, or can they reach out to you for?
They can take a look anytime.
Understanding that.
Yeah, they can take a look anytime they want to come see. Also, they could attend the work session with the board. And go from there.
Are those types, what I'm understanding is, it is appropriate for me to come with comments and concerns about curriculum to the board, but do we come to the work session to review what's being proposed to the board? Is there anything
You can call me anytime you want to.
see what's being
Oh, absolutely.
looked at?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Be more than happy to meet with parents if they're concerned about curriculum that we're looking at. And there is a state adoption list that we have to adhere to. If we go beyond that list, we have to appeal to the state and say why we're wanting to go off that list. And then we'll have to create some supplementary stuff because there's a reason why certain curriculums don't make the list, because they're not checking off all the boxes that the state is saying are required. But yes, absolutely. Be more than happy to sit down with any parent anytime.
That concludes patron comments. Board comments. Do any of our board members have any comments or discussion, not discussion, sorry, any comments from the board members? Linda, I can't see you shake your head if you're shaking your head.
No, I don't have any comments tonight. Thank you.
All right, up next is our consent agenda. That again is the consent agenda minus the approval of minutes. So we're looking at the approval of bills for July and August. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, Deb's motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Robert has seconded. So roll call vote, Ryan,
Yes.
Christine is a yes. Linda?
Yes.
Alright. That passes unanimously. Up next are action items. First up is library book recommendations.
Yes, Madam Chair. Mary, I always forget her last name. O'Brien, thank you, has been working feverishly this summer to go through our selection of books here in this library and call out all the old books that have not been used or just past their time of use. And so what you see here is a recommendation. I'm trying to pull it up here. I'm sorry, I'm a little behind here on the click. I don't see it.
I don't see it here either.
I do not see a recommendation there. Okay, so the recommendation, I'll just talk you through it. That came from Mary to me. Yes, that's the one right there. Nathan, can you? Thank you, Nathan. You're saving the day. Thank you, Tim. The steps that we would like to propose to the board is once we've identified the books that need to be discarded per board policy, board has to approve a discarded books. We want to mark those books appropriately with a discard stamp and then offer those discarded books to the staff for classroom use first. And then second, we would have a book sale. And, you know, I don't know, we'd sell them 25 cents a book or something like that. Proceeds will go to library. Or there could be a donation if you want to make the library, and we would use those funds to purchase new books for library. And after all that is done, after we have the book sale, any unsold books be donated to the Corvallis Public Library because they do have a way of reusing those books and putting them into circulation, or sometimes they use it for auctions for garnering fundraised dollars for purchasing new books on their end too. And so what I've told Mary as well as the district, Corvallis district librarian is I don't want to see books going into the receptacle. It's not appropriate way to treat books. I want them used. So that is what is before the board for approval.
I just have one question. Never mind, I don't have a question yet. Is there a motion to approve the library books recommendation?
We'll make the motion to approve the library books recommendation.
All right, Deb has motioned. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Deb, do you have any discussion on this item?
So if we're taking them out of our library for everyone to use, why would the teachers want them?
They may have some sentimental value with them,
Okay.
or they have always used a certain book for a number of years for a certain lesson, or maybe sometimes they just like to display some historical books that haven't been used for a while, promote them within the classroom. Just
Okay.
depends.
Personal preference.
Yeah, personal preference. Mhm.
Okay.
Discussion? Linda, any discussion?
No, it's just very interesting to go through it. I volunteered for about 2.5 hours yesterday to help stamp those books that were being selected as discarded. And it would be worth everybody's time to go back through and look at those books if they wish to purchase them, because they still have library cards in them where your relatives or your kids or your grandkids may have already selected those books out, and just it's a good thing to do.
Robert, any discussion?
No.
Linda shared with me that there's some local signatures and author signatures. Some of those books are 100 years old. I think rather than discarding some of that, I think it shows the history of our school. It would certainly be an awesome display to have, even if it's in the library. So I'm
Wait,
fine
what
with
was that
keeping,
again?
I'm fine with keeping them out of
Some of the
circulation.
checkout.
No, some of the like books have signatures of like authors in them and, or have been, or were published and bought back in 1918 and are here in this library, so
I
it
think we
would
should
be kind of
keep
cool to
those.
have a display
Huh.
of that.
We
I
could
mean,
pull those
Didn't
out
know.
of the,
I am a book nerd, so I think that's really cool. Maybe I'm the only one.
There, there are also books that were donated in like 1917 and signed by the person that donated them.
we could pull those out and keep those separately, but we have boxes and boxes of
Oh,
books.
just the
we-
individual ones with some
yeah,
of that
yeah,
historical
we could.
value would be really neat
We
to
could,
have.
yeah,
We'll
we
Put them
could,
in Sean's office.
yeah, just put them in my office.
He's gonna need
I've
one.
got room.
Have you got problems with that, Sean? It's just,
No,
it's a
no.
neat thing to look at.
No, I have no problem whatsoever.
Deb, do you have any second discussion you want to bring up
No, ma'am.
from the board? Any second discussion?
No.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Robert?
Yes.
Christine is a yes. Linda?
Yes,
All right, the motion passes unanimously. All right, next up is the approval of the Corvallis Food Service Contract for 2022-2023.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Gallagher.
No, you're fine. Yes, Madam Chair. You'll see a memo there from me that kind of covers the highlights of the agreement. Tara Sanders is the new supervisor of the Corvallis School District Food Service Program. And I've been working with her since I've been here in March to relook at our agreement that we've had with Corvallis School District for many, many, many years. And she's very mindful that she does not want to make money, that she wants to be able to recoup enough to reimburse, for the increased food costs, those sorts of things. So we were able to negotiate about $34,000 that will come back to our school district to help with our food labor costs. And so I thought that was a very nice asset of this particular agreement. There is a slight increase in adult meal costs. The student meal costs remain free since our district still qualifies for what is called community eligibility provisions. And that is assessed every couple of years based upon census data and income data and those sorts of things. It's done separately from the schools, but it's a great asset to have. That way our students are not having to pay anything out of pocket for breakfasts and lunches. So I've been very impressed with the Corvallis Food Service. They will be continuing to prepare the foods and then deliver them here. We can certainly continue to put our own touches on the food as how we serve it and things of that nature. And we just hired a new head cook, Eric Taylor. He has got a degree in culinary arts and he cooks very, very well. I can guarantee it. And so we're very excited with our food service program this year.
Is there a motion for this? Agenda item?
I make a motion to approve the Corvallis Food Service contract for 2022-2023.
I'll second.
Discussion, right? Deb?
Just can't wait to get ours back.
Deb?
No.
Robert?
No.
Linda, any discussion?
no.
All right, we'll vote.
But Racine,
Yes.
could you move the mic just towards you a little bit so that you can be heard? I can hear Sean really, really well, but lots of times I can't hear you. Thank you.
That's a first. We'll go ahead and vote. Linda?
Yes?
Robert?
What am I voting on? I'm sorry, I left my.
Service
forgot.
contract.
You're voting on whether.
Yes, let's have the service contract. Yes.
Robert, yes. And I am a yes as well. All right, next up on the agenda is the approval of the retention and recruitment of K-12 educator grant. I believe this was actually discussed previously. We just didn't approve the grant.
Yeah, for some reason, we, in the course of everything, we forgot to bring this to the board for formal approval. We're using the grant dollars to hire Tim Pearson this year as our instructional coach. We're also using these grant dollars to pay for stipends for a teacher mentee mentoring program, which we're very excited about, as well as some professional development for our teacher mentor mentees. And so very excited about this grant. These are dollars that are well worth spending for the purpose that they're being spent for.
Is there a motion for this agenda item?
I would like to make a motion for, sorry, I just lost my place here. It went away just like that. For the retention and recruitment grant, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
To approve it?
to approve it.
Okay.
I second.
Linda seconds. Deb, any discussion?
Nope, I think it's a great idea.
Linda, any discussion?
No, thank you.
Robert? Ryan? All right, we'll vote. Robert,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Christine is a yes. Next up on the agenda is our second reading of policies, personnel policy revisions. These were provided last board meeting for our first reading. They're here for today to accept these policies. If I'm not incorrect, these are policies we do need in place with revisement or not, but we need them in place for our HR project.
Yes, our HR
Yes.
reset project, these policies need to be in place sooner than later.
Yes.
So believe it or not, I actually read all of these. And so-
Good for you. Good job.
Well, they were so intriguing. So there was a couple parentheses that I saw that needed to be filled, yes. So annual or there was annual.
Did I miss something? Which policy?
So
Well, hold on, I'm working at it here slowly. Maybe it's not in this one.
So the first one up is the BPGAA personnel definitions that defines. These are cliff notes in our, these are, I'm reading off the cliff notes, sorry.
Yes, my notes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm looking
Yes.
at.
Okay, so this expands the definition of an administrator to include the administrative licensure.
Mhm.
It restricts classified definitions to only regular, part-time, and temporarily. The recommendation of the superintendent is that the board adopt all bracketed language under classified personnel.
Mhm.
Supervisory employees, the recommendation eliminates references to nurses.
Mhm.
And confidential employees further defines the definition and references the ORS statute.
Mhm.
Were there any adjustments that anybody had on the
No.
BPGAA policy? Okay, next up is the BPGCN GDN, evaluation of staff. We need this to begin in compliance with current state law in regards to our staff evaluations. I believe that also has to do with our union
Mhm.
bylaw, yeah,
Yep,
yes, our union bylaws also. So
Yep.
for one, we would reference core teaching standards set by the Oregon State Board of Education and the Oregon Framework for Teachers and Administration Evaluation and Support Systems. All evaluation systems will be used by the district to comply with these standards.
Mhm.
Secondarily, the remainder of the policy simply defines in detail the requirements referenced in number 1
Above.
above.
So for some reason, these policies are not coming up on my board books at this time.
There, okay, so this is the Cliff Notes this month. Last month have the full policy.
Okay, so that's why I'm not.
That's why
finding
you're
it.
not.
Actually, the
I'm
full
like
policy's
looking
on
and I'm
here.
like,
Oh, if you
You just scroll down.
keep
Down.
Scrolling down.
Below my.
But this is
below my
under his
memo.
notes,
So
Okay, maybe
I'm-
that's what it is.
I'm just reading
So
through the
open the-
changes
the
suggested.
PDF
Well, that,
policy.
I read every single one of them. That's why I was like, wait a minute, they're
Yeah.
not here now.
This is
Oh,
just
yeah, I've got them
condensed.
on mine.
I think you might have opened last month's though, because it didn't have a memo attached to those ones necessarily. Sorry, so for the evaluation of staff, are there any adjustments that anybody feels necessary on that one? All right, BPGB is our general personnel policy, reflecting best practices associated with our hiring of employees. And also will reinforce the district's obligation to hire best qualified person for the job.
Period.
End of discussion.
End of discussion.
We do not hire with accordance to favoritism and we follow other appropriate standards. It would violate this policy and subject us to district liabilities if we broke that policy. So these highlights include, we would have advertising requirements for each position. The district, but too much reading, sorry. The direct application and who supervises the process. Sean recommends the Office of Application and the superintendent to supervise the process.
So it'll be the personnel office. So that bracket, I'm recommending personnel,
Personnel.
and then the superintendent in the second bracket to supervise the process.
Indicate that licensed hires are to be board approved and that the superintendent in the bracket is the one that handles all the classified hires.
Mhm.
And the superintendent will establish in the bracket the guidelines regarding the process. And that's usually defined in our staff or HR handbook.
Yes.
In regards to personnel policy, are there any questions? All right. BPGB is our classified staff and classified staff positions. We just reinforce the definition of the classified employee under current law referenced at the end of the policy. Questions on that one? All right. The last one is our BPGAB job descriptions policy. It's crucial to be updated as the district is revising and reauthoring job descriptions. The recommendation to the board is that the job descriptions for, in brackets, Alcee School District be adopted. It also recommends that the district review annually all job descriptions. And it should be a natural part of the annual evaluation process where the job description is reviewed with the employee to further define job duties and any updates that need to be reflected. All right. Is there a motion to accept the edits and adoption of these personnel policies?
I'll make that motion.
All right, Robert has made the motion to accept the personnel policies. Is there?
I second.
Is there any discussion? Robert?
No.
Linda?
No.
Deb?
No.
Ryan?
No.
All right, let's vote. Deb?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
And I am a yes also. I hope I don't have to read that much again.
Mhm.
All right. Next up is we need to vote on our superintendent search process. So this is the prime time of year to vote on superintendent search to put out for a new superintendent. There are two things that need to be voted on this evening. In this, we need to identify. I'm sorry, there are three things that need to be voted on this evening. We need to vote on the agency we will use. So if we want to use OSBA in partnership with COSA, if we would like this to be an internal, external, or external search for a superintendent. And the board needs to also identify a person to be a point of contact for the superintendent search.
Oh, I should be doing that. So are we opening the board for just
We should
do the
motion
motion?
first.
So I'd like to make a motion to start our superintendent search, our permanent superintendent search. You want the rest of it, all of it?
If we can, otherwise we have to vote 3 times.
Okay, so I personally would like to put in the agency being OSBA in partnership with COSA. And I also would like to add an internal and external. And I'm happy to be the contact person if nobody else wants.
Not mind working with Vince to do
You offered all second.
that.
All right.
If somebody else wants that job, Linda.
All right, so I'm going to just read this back to make sure I got the motion correct. So Deb has motioned to approve the start of the superintendent search with the agency of OSBA and COSA for an internal, external search for superintendent, with Deb Lindbergh being the contact person to work with. Ryan has seconded. Is there any discussion? Deb?
I do not have any more discussion. Anybody else want to be the contact? I'm happy to step aside.
I don't want to be the contact, but I would love to work in accordance with you.
Okay. I will be the contact person.
Wonderful. Ryan? Any discussion?
No, just so that the community knows and is cleared with OSBA and COSA is a lot cheaper route than we could go with a third party agency to find a superintendent. As Sean told us, there was one company that was good for that, but